Good evening, council, to the second budget workshop session for the 2022 proposed budget. Tonight, we have Director of Public Works Shane Brown here. We'll start out with the DPW portion of the budget that comes from the general fund. Then I'd like to move into the sewer fund, and then from there, the water fund. I think we'll try to keep it about an hour and a half. If we've got time when Shane's done, Angela and I look now to see if there's any smaller areas that we can cover. I think we did a good job in getting them last. So before I introduce Shane, just again, thanks to everybody for participating. And Shane's got, there's a lot of sheets in here. What I've asked Shane to do is just kind of start at the beginning and we'll thumb through them. That way, if you've got notes on your pages, we can ask them. And then I'll follow up generally at the end with any comments that Angela and I have. And certainly if we've got questions as we go through it. Again, there's a lot to cover here, so Shane.
Start on E2, Public Works Administration. That's myself, administrative assistant, my supervisor, and the head facility maintenance worker salary split, third, and third. Next is the admin budget. Anybody got any questions on that page? On to E4 is the salaries for street maintenance. And the positions, basically the positions are broke out of all the budgets where we believe the people work the most, break it down.
Yep, I think that's a good thing. The only thing I had a concern with when I looked at your budget the other day is, so here we have the names written next to them, right? So when you get to water and sewer and the other aspects of this budget, there's no names. Can we get those sheets replaced with the names?
Yeah. So
that we just have an accountability of who's getting that 1/3, who's getting the 50 and where it's going to.
I think, didn't we do a spreadsheet of the names of every DPW and what?
Yes,
So
I did.
we got a spreadsheet of every employee and then where they're getting charged. So I think it'll be easier, council, than trying to skip back and forth on all these sheets to see because that was one of the things we tried to do this year was just make sure we identified. I just want you to be able to see how we're charging the positions. Yeah, so we'll get you that spreadsheet right away with every employee on and where they're charged to.
So you'll forward that to us?
Yeah, we'll do. Matter of fact, one of us will pull it from our screen now and send it to you.
Cool.
So
Thank you very much.
Proposed budget, are those 3 zeros in the proposed budget, are they impending retirements or?
they got shifted to different lines, and
Different.
actually
Okay.
the fourth one down has retired. So that's why if you look over under the proposed budget, there's zeros.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fourth one down has retired.
So that's why I was asking that question, Nicole, because I wanted to know specifically who was where.
Right. If that threw me off, I was like, I'm going through it. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. And without the explanation, it doesn't make sense. Thank you.
E5, the street maintenance budget. If anybody has any questions on that line?
What's the capital equipment?
On E1, even going back on street maintenance, from 2021, street maintenance, actually up one, yeah, where it was 1.3 million, and then proposed this year, 1 million.
I think that's the difference in the chip allocation. This year we got almost $800,000 and we don't know what we'll get next year. So we brought it back down to 500,000 to be safe.
Just seemed like $300,000 was like gone.
So, Counselor, really what it amounts to is we got reimbursed money last year that was originally cut, that came back. So the numbers look a little bit higher because that money came in last year for the year before. I do expect, if you look at the president's infrastructure bill that was just passed, there's a lot of money in there for things. So I think some of the programs that we were a little unsure of when we started doing this, Shane, extreme weather,
New York.
yeah, there's a couple of those. I really suspect we're going to see them come through again. But instead of planning for it and then having to figure out where the shortfall is, we left it out until we know, and we'll come back just like we did last year. If you remember, we got those funds we weren't expecting to get. We'll notify council and then we'll make the modification to the budget then, so.
And E5 is the, under the revenue, the weed removal for 8,000, is that,
That's, well, weed ordinances.
okay, weed ordinances, okay. I didn't know if it was, okay.
Capital equipment,
We paid off, almost everything we have with CHIPS money. That leaves, on a dump truck we ordered this year. And then, part of a new mower.
It's great.
was that dump truck with the funny axle or whatever that turns? We ordered it a couple years ago and it never came in. And
The 10-wheeler?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we paid that off and we paid trackless off and bought a new roller.
have we discovered that's better for plowing or no? Because that was one of the reasons that we,
It works better on the mains if we're shorthanded. We can use one truck instead of two.
right,
And they actually can fit down the city streets because the front axle is set back, so a better turning radius on it. So we can work on side streets too if we have to.
I remember, yep.
E6 is salaries for street cleaning.
So this is the stuff that I'm talking about.
Yep, and I think she's to get that. Actually, I just got it and it does explain a lot.
Okay.
I got a little confused. Yeah.
It's just kind of pretty copy.
Okay, good.
E7 is the street cleaning budget. E8 is the shop salaries. They're at a third because they get split over the three budgets. E9 is the shops.
So on E7, the retirement jumped up almost 12 grand, 11 grand. Thank you.
I think that's because where we reappropriated people to where they belonged. By breaking the budgets and putting them where they're actually working.
So that would have decreased it, wouldn't it?
Well, not unless people were being charged to water and sewer. And then, so if you see an increase here, you should see a decrease in water and sewer.
Or another line,
Or
it could be in like street maintenance, or snow, it might go down.
So that spreadsheet's got a lot going on that Angela just passed around. I think you'll get the general, just looking to see, what's the difference over here? Oh, that's dollars over here. Okay.
Dollars and then
So
FTEs.
that first chart there that's really all of Shane's staff. So everybody's accounted for, and then you can see how they've allocated everybody.
So in terms of retirement, the insured, I'm sorry, not insured, but the pensionable wages are not this year's pensionable wages. So there is some lag when the state bills that. It ends on wages from, it's being billed from April 1, 2020 to March 31st, 2021. So sometimes we see in a department in 2022 that the wages have gone down, but you have to kind of go back in time to see what the wages were earlier on. So with that being said, the retirement dollars don't always flow in the same trajectory as the wages do.
So why would wages go down? Because somebody with more time retired and replaced by a younger person or a newer person?
That's one scenario where wages could go down. Other than that is that, which department are we on? Street cleaning, we would have maybe had one full FTE for someone in there last year, where this year we did more appropriate, in conversation with Shane, like a third or a half of an FTE.
Right.
So there was,
But yeah, it looks like the salary almost doubled, so we added people to the street cleaning.
So that's what I was, yeah. So by street cleaning, I think of the machine that goes around and cleans the
But it's
streets.
also brush removal.
Gotcha. All right. That's what I'm wondering. So street cleaning includes brush. Gotcha. So I noticed the two mechanics, they're split up between all three.
Yep.
Okay. That's good.
Any questions on E9?
Why 2021, 400,000 and then only 295 in 2022 on total department appropriations?
What line item is that?
It's the total in the first block, down at the bottom of 2021, budgeted.
So you went from 435 to
295.
295. Yeah, I got that highlighted too.
What happened?
No, nothing. So remember that you're looking at 435. Oh, I'm sorry. So 435 is our modified budget.
Mhm.
The next column is 229. That's what we've spent to date. And then our,
Sorry about that. Yeah. Where's Sally?
So you have some lines because we took the respective people out and we split the public works garage a third. So if you look, your modified budget under the personnel portion went from, I'm just gonna use full numbers,
I'm gonna.
went from 110 down to 40,000. So there's $70,000 of your
Well, I might.
difference. Your contractual supplies under the 0.4 was at 275, went to 35. So there's 40,000 of your difference. And then the benefits associated with those wages, because the wages were moved out of the fund, we're decreasing that 30,000 right there. So those three chunks are where we're seeing the differences. And the reason is not because the people have changed, but the methodology in creating the budget has changed.
Right.
So I think we're going to see that through all the public works departments, the water, the sewer, is this misaligning with prior year only because we are comparing an apple to an orange in that we've completely changed the way we've allocated these employees. So it's not that we're spending less government-wide, we're just attributing it differently to the various departments.
As it should be. Been saying
Agreed.
that for years.
Mhm.
Yep.
okay,
On equipment maintenance, you spent 64,000 year to date, but we employ mechanics. Is that parts and?
Yes, that's parts.
Yeah.
Is that because your equipment is newer than it has been?
Yes, that's why we reduced the line because we've come a long ways in the last 5 years or 6 years with the equipment.
Is this the only department where we break up the employees into different categories? Because
in general, what we stopped doing altogether was anybody that's not in DPW. What we didn't do this year in the budget. So for instance, we didn't allocate any of my salary or people in the comptroller's office. So that was kind of my save for this year, was I just reeled in anybody who isn't in DPW to say, we'll track and figure out the hours. And if there's money is owed, we'll put that back. Not many people. But then in DPW, that's why we spent a lot of time coming up with, what Shane's best estimate is, who's aligned where. And yes, these are all mandatory programs and categories under the state of New York budget. And we need to do our best to allocate the costs. So I think that we're close here. I don't think we were way off prior either, by the way. I think we're getting closer. And I think the automated timekeeping system. Next year, our aspiration will be to be able to make sure we get it, accurate in the big three funds: general, water, and sewer. excuse me, when we're successful with that, then perhaps we can look at doing the actual within the funds in the general fund. I'm fearful that it'll just get pretty difficult trying to track, every hour I worked in sewer, I worked in streets, I worked in this, I worked in that. So my goal is to at least get it in the big three. Because for your purposes, looking at this budget, you want to see where our money is going. But the reality is that it's all general fund, all this, we're talking about tonight. But so I think, yeah, Councilor Reese, to answer your question, this is the only one that I can think of, because we pulled everything else back that was being aligned with some percentage, so it wouldn't be so confusing.
When you say state mandate, we have to categorize them this way.
These are all these come right out of the state comptroller budget book. Yes. Some other budgets, what I have discovered looking at other budgets from other communities is I think other places do a summary, so it's easier for people to go online and read. I look at Corning's budget a lot, City of Geneva, and they've got these really easy to read 12 or 15, maybe 20-page documents. And I realized someone does that summary so people can look through it fairly quickly, because this is a lot of accounting documentation to grasp. But I think everybody follows the same format.
So I think it's important, I mean, to have the comptroller's numbers there as well as Andrea's. I'm sure Andrea puts in a ton of time.
Yeah. So, and again, that's what we'll do. So in the case of that, Councilor Scamperly, what was happening there is we were allotting full FTEs there. That I knew wasn't accurate. So it's just will be easier for me now to look, and it's only a handful of positions going forward. So we'll have the automated timekeeping in place. Again, my position, everybody in the comptroller's office, the planning office, anybody in the staff. We were allotting quite a bit from code enforcement to water and sewer. Again, I couldn't find any empirical data really to track that. So I think, again, I think it'll give us credibility in that going forward this year, I'll be able to report, on a somewhat quarterly basis as we do our budget reviews. Here's how the numbers are matching up with our data compared to where we budgeted it, and be able to keep you apprised on that. I don't think right now our best analysis looking at this is we're still taking a little too much from water and sewer probably, but I don't think it's going to be a more drastic number going forward. And I do think it's important that we, it's just going to be important we have the accountability of it. And again, having a system that will allow us to keep the data will be what's going to help us, be able to do that. In the case of DPW, I think, again, we'll do it, but my hunch is, again, Shane's actual data will match up pretty closely to his data here. So
What's the projected loss in revenue for water and sewer with the proposed closing of Ogdensburg Correctional Facility?
Don't know yet. We've been working on a project to break out, Shane. We know the water, it's the sewer we needed to break out between the psychiatric center and that correctional facility.
They have one sewer meter, and they subtract what they bring in for water.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of a nightmare, because if there's leaks, they don't know whose leak it is and who's paying for it.
But is our water broke, or is our water also one?
No, the water's split in two different meters.
But we know exactly what we bill them and what we won't be getting.
Yep.
I just find it, they basically mandate or force you into a $43 million sewage treatment plant improvement project. They underfund it, in my opinion, in terms of grant versus loans. And then they take the revenue away. That's essentially what they're doing.
Yes, sir. Just before you come in, the agenda for tonight, and we talk about whatever, but we talked about doing DPW. We'll do sewer next, and then we'll water's third on our list. So we've actually got time for that tonight as well.
E10 is salaries for snow removal. E11 is the snow removal budget.
On the very last line, down 459 to 383. Total effort required. Why? From the 2021 modified budget to the proposed 2022. Very last line.
E10, Steve?
Yeah, 11, I mean.
E11.
What's the question?
Why is it so much less?
Which line?
On E11,
The very bottom line.
the very
local
bottom
effort
line for
required.
total local effort required.
Looks like
John.
we did budget
We have a
more for bringing in more money for removal for the state work we do. Looks like we budgeted 70,000 instead of 45.
We had less materials.
We have less in expenses, so naturally, if we have the $50,000 less in expenses and we have 35,000 more in revenue, a swing of 60, that's approximately what you're seeing on that bottom line variance.
I thought you were telling us we were gonna have less snow and ice.
Well, I would love to tell you that, but I don't think that's the case.
It is November 15th and we haven't done the street yet. Fingers crossed.
You just jinxed us.
Snowstorm tomorrow. Yeah.
It's the price of a ton of salt now.
60 some dollars, I think it's down from last year.
Quite a bit cheaper. How many tons do you get?
We pre-order 1,500 tons.
You still mix it with sand?
We mix about 1,500 tons of sand with salt, a third salt to 2/3 sand, and then we stock the rest for pure salt for the mains.
Treated salt's a lot more.
What's that?
Treated salt is a lot more.
I don't even know if they offer that. We just go off the county bid.
Oh. Yeah, I think you can put in for it if you wanted to pay more.
And
But-
we do buy calcium to put with it and activate ourselves when it gets below a certain temperature.
Oh, yeah. No, a lot of the Adirondack communities are going to a treated salt that is less, it's more environmentally friendly, I guess, because it's a slower release and stuff. But it is more expensive.
Yeah.
Does that impact, like the runoff and all that? That probably impacts the sewage treatment plant, right? Because you're putting salt in with the biologicals and all that.
I don't know if it has an impact with the treatment process, but I'm sure it adds a little bit to it. E12 street lighting. There's no salaries appropriated to that, it's just the budget.
That's what we paid NIMO for streetlights.
Yeah, the 460 and the other two lines are just maintenance lines, 3,500 each. Because we do own some of our own lights, so we do have to go out and replace them, upgrade.
Are ours all LED now?
Not all the ones we own ourselves, no. We're working on it, but they're not all LED.
We've asked National Grid just recently to do an assessment of everything we have left. First determine, is it just more cost effective and efficient for them to take all of our lights? And they'll ultimately follow up with how to convert them to
LED.
LED, whether we keep them or not. So I think we'll have a good proposal from them soon. Shane, roughly how many do we have left that are ours?
Well, I think we have under 50. Just make sure the trail, the downtown arterial, a little bit around the parks, and the Lafayette Street Bridge are our lights too. But they're going to send a proposal on how much it would cost us to have them switch them to LED versus what they think we could save on our bills. So it should even out over a certain amount of time.
I don't know the exact program they're using, but we're doing the conversion now in all the city buildings with the interior lights. And, we had pretty low quotes from their vendors to do all that, then showing the payoffs, what the cost of the city would be. And then, which in maybe 2 months before the work started, they came back and ended up, it's almost all being done at no cost. Yeah. So these conservation programs are really coming through again, not costing us anything to get more efficient lights and better products. And National Grid's really doing a great job with it. So I'm hopeful. We were pleasantly surprised at the quotes we got. Quite frankly, the numbers were good. Our potential payout for the money it was going to save was pretty high. And then when they came back zero, that was even better. So I'm hoping the streetlight thing will be the same thing. We do go through a little bit of whose streetlight it is, who saw it out, this, that, or the other. So I think National Grid's got people, this is all they do, and watch these, monitor these, and take care of them. So I'm hoping we get a good number back.
Be good to get that out in a press release. The savings and that, what you've done or what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think they've completed our building. They're working on City Hall. I think they might have completed the fire department. So, and the DeBisky's completed. They got the PD left. The only thing we haven't got yet is the arena. But they can't do that till next year once the ice is out.
These aren't fixed yet.
No, I don't think they haven't done all City Hall. They're taking their time in here with people working in the building when they can come in and out. E13 sidewalk salaries. E14 is the sidewalk budget.
Do we have the money allocated in here we normally do like a match of some sort
Yeah,
for the residents? What line does that fall under? Is that under?
That's 330 capital construction.
Okay. Now, is there a certain time, like I know I've had residents asking about that for the spring. Is there an appropriate time they should contact your office?
Yeah, I mean, if they're doing it right away in the spring, the money should be there. But I'd have them, if they're stretching out into June or July, I'd have them call to make sure there's still funds available.
Okay.
Did you have enough money with the 30,000 or did you run out?
No, we had enough money. I just think people are just starting to get back into it. So I think next year they'll probably use more now they know it's back and available.
How much do we have dedicated to sidewalks?
Right now, it went down from 30,000 to 20,000.
That's what I thought.
Any private contractors that participate at all?
Yeah, that's mainly a private contractor that does most of it. But then they just get reimbursed the city's rate. I think there was very few sidewalks we actually did in-house. Most of it was done by a local contractor right in the city.
So everything got spent this year?
No, by the looks of it, there's about maybe 5,000 or 10,000 left. I think we budgeted 25,000 last year for the reimbursement program with the residents, and 5,000 was budgeted for us if we had to force somebody to do their sidewalk because it was in such bad shape for us to pay for it. So it looks like they probably spent about 18,000 of the 25.
Well, at least nobody got left behind. If they wanted it done, it got done.
Yeah, I think we actually even got one the other day. Someone brought one in within the last 2 weeks. That did one.
I talked to you before about lead pipes and the programs that are coming up for replacing lead pipes. Is there a strategy or a plan to kind of capitalize on that or figure out how many lead pipes we have and whose house has them and what our mains are made of, things like that?
Well, our mains are, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. They're so old. And if we dig one up, we can notice it, but we could probably try to do a survey like the rec department's been doing, and maybe ask homeowners to tell us what they have inside. If they have galvanized or copper, if they don't know, we could go check. We do have some records that date back to maybe to the 70s, but they're not all on there for services, but not a lot of main records. I mean, we have maps, but it doesn't really tell you what's down there.
Yeah, if we could just, I think if we could talk about conservation just when we hit water, because I think actually that goes good with the discussion about meters and needing to get into people's homes and see what's there and trying to make our system more efficient, et cetera. So I'll talk about that then as well.
E15 is shade tree salaries. There's nobody in that salary line. E16 is the shade tree budget.
So that's just generally public works.
Yeah, it's just tree removal, and if we have to call a contractor for a tree that's too large for our equipment, and buying, people request new trees, money in there to plant new trees. That is the DPW streets budget. We want to move to sewer next.
Well, let's see if there's any questions on roads, grounds, streets, anything to talk about now.
I think you guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Shane, if you could really highlight, I'm not sure that Councilor Reach was here, but if you and Angela could both talk about just quickly the stuff that was paid off early, you know, what the logic was on that, the leases, the whatever. Let's just make sure. I just want to, all these things that kind of like the energy conservation, for instance, one of those things that we, you know, have stuff going on a daily basis, but I want to make sure we talk about. So paying down the debt and equipment and stuff, and then stuff you were able to buy this year.
Yeah, with the extra chips revenue, we budgeted, I think, around 400,000 with the upwards of 800,000. We paid off a 10-wheeler, a trackless, and then we bought a new roller too. So we paid off all the equipment we have, and we're just waiting on one dump truck to be delivered that I think will be paid off with this budget, right? Because the money we saved by paying the other stuff off, we're gonna roll over to next year, and we budgeted enough to pay it completely off this year.
That's great.
And then the street, like he spoke of all the new lights. They gave us a great deal, and we kind of lost track of it a little bit, and then they came back and said, we'll do them for free now. So the only thing we're waiting on is the arena. He was working on getting that one free, but even if he didn't get for free, it was a minute amount of money for what you'd saved. When you look at, you know, what you're putting in and how long it would take you to get your money back.
Very good.
Your equipment, you feel like everything's sufficient, you're good,
Yeah, we're getting there.
and big savings because you have newer equipment, that's.
Yeah, it could reduce the cost of, as you see, the maintenance line went down 30,000.
Good.
So I think a couple other things to talk about in here. You've got the total numbers of personnel. One of the items that is in the budget here, and it's not listed in an obvious way, so I just wanted to talk about was we've planned to try to close that pay gap that we've talked about by about 3.5%. And Angela, that amounts to roughly how much money?
56,000.
So, you know, obviously you all know how I feel about this. We've got a pretty significant gap to close. But I think we're able to take that amount of money and add that to the normal raise that was planned this year to be able to start to draw in that DPW pay. One of the things that I think we definitely have seen in the DPW area during recruiting is again, like every other place, just the difficulty, you know, the skilled labor. And there's no shortage of demand for the skilled labor, and staying competitive with the salary and the benefits is got to be important to us, because if you just look, you know, 20 or 30 miles in each direction, the number of heavy contractors in this area that, you know, that we're competing with to keep those folks. We're recruiting now for a mechanic position that we expect to come vacant. And again, it's there's a lot of competition out there. So I just think, and then of course, you know, we compete with the county and the other towns and the villages, you know, et cetera. So I think it's one of the most significant reasons we've got to, you know, make sure we're maintaining, you know, pay at an applicable level with these positions, because I think the competitiveness is going to be there. So I think we don't see a lot of turnover in DPW, and that's a good thing. But I think as this labor crisis continues to drag on in the country, I think the skilled labor, we're going to continue to see it. I mean, I see it in the school, you know, just begging to get people to drive buses. So it's like all of our other occupations, having the access to the labor, and this one particularly because there is so much competition for it. Shane, you talked about equipment facility issues. So again, I feel like in general, our DPW program is in good shape. The one area of concern that we always are paying attention to is, again, similar to what we talked about in the police department, is the number of missions. So one of the things I do like about the DPW budget is it puts right in front of us with a cost, each of those different missions, pretty significantly broken out. So we see where the costs are and the things that we have to do. So we've looked at all the areas that we think it would be more appropriate or perhaps there'd be savings to outsource. And I think right now, the biggest gain we see in that was with the paving program. We tend to continue to do a lot of our prep work. And then we bring the pavers in to do it. That keeps our guys off that duty. We keep some paving equipment for the small jobs that we need to do or patch and repair. But I think as we looked, one of the areas I asked Shane to look at this year was our sidewalks, the radius program. And I'm always looking for ways to help make Shane more efficient because we have no shortage of work, as you all know, for the DPW to do. There's no shortage of jobs, especially in the 3 or 4 months of good weather. But I tell you, the sidewalk work is one that I was really pushing Shane towards. Hey, can't we scope that every year and put it out for bid? And that way, if nothing else, maybe it doesn't save us much money, but it buys us back time for you all. But I have to tell you, as I walked down the street the other day, I was over at on Congress Street. I look at the quality of the work, our sidewalks, and I don't know. But I'm not saying we couldn't get a good contractor to do good work, but I'm saying we're getting really good work from our people, a lot of pride in the work that goes on. And so what I was wanted to relay with this is we're looking, for efficiencies, but we're also, recognizing places where we just want to maintain the level of service that we're doing. So we have increased the level of pickups on the street. And Shane and I are going to talk about the schedule going into the year. I don't personally like seeing the piles of stuff appearing frequently on the side of the road and then sitting there for months, and then you drive down the street and the piles that we picked up that have been sitting there for a month or two, you've got these big spots on people's yards where the grass is dead and burned up. So we're going to come up with a little more aggressive plan next year and communicate over the winter to people. Again, if you want to leave trees and branches and things under your front yard and kill your grass, that's up to you. I'm just concerned some of the piles are pretty big. Our rodents, building nests and hanging out on those, and just the unsightliness of it. So I know that previous councils have had to look at this. This is one of those issues that will go back and forth. We're trying to save our people because people will put stuff by the road. We've got lots of stuff to do and the weather's good, but I think there's a balancing act, and maybe we'll try to slide this need a little bit more in the direction of getting a little more pickup, just so we don't have the stuff on the streets, and we can get people to kind of stay in the mode with the pickup time. So again, I saw a lot of it. I would always call Shane and he would remind me, hey, we have pickup dates, and people just keep putting stuff by the road and we pick it up at the next date. But I think it looked, outside of that, we get a lot of comments on how the streets looked. People particularly noticed this year that we did a significant amount of tree trimming in the area of intersections and tree trimming. So I think a lot of our stuff is working, and we'll look for.
Personally, I like that. A tree should look like a tree and not a bush. And the trees, looks a lot better than what you've done. Areas.
So as far as picking up yard waste, it's not as simple, I suppose, as saying month of May we pick up and month of October we pick up.
Nope. I learned that this year. It definitely is. And I say that only meaning, we all have 3 or 4 months of good weather, so you might not have gotten to trimming or cleaning out the shrubs in the backyard that you wanted to in May. You might have done in July, and you drag it out of the road, and there it's going to sit for 2 months. In the meantime, all the grass will be dead out there, and the brush will blow around when the wind blows, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and again, we want to continue to promote people cleaning up their yards and taking care of things. This is not trying to stop that. I'm just trying to say, I noticed it in my own neighborhood. One of my neighbors was very diligent about trimming, but the piles would sit there. And then again, the grass is dead and it looks kind of unsightly. So, but to Shane's point, we could pick it up every week because again, it's summertime and we only have a few months to take care of our yard and et cetera. So it's just a matter of us trying to find the sweet spot of when we can pick things up. Maybe we can get the big stuff picked up a couple times a year, but with all of our discussion about improving the way properties look, I don't want to dissuade anybody even a little bit from cleaning up property. So we'll come up with a plan.
Years ago, it used to be you could call and have, if it was a large site pickup, you could just call DPW, and then if they were in your neighborhood with similar equipment they would use, or they would get enough in a neighborhood. That's how it was in previous years.
We used to have a weekly pickup, they call, and we go out every Friday.
Yeah, every Friday. I remember it was something like that. You could, if you took down a tree,
Very expensive.
it was very expensive.
We still have it July, right? Midsummer.
Yeah, we did. I think we did it twice this summer,
Yeah.
just like he spoke up. It just got bad out of hand. We usually do about a month long in the spring, a month long in the fall. I think myself, we hit it maybe twice in the summertime, maybe in July, maybe in August. It might maybe do what we want, but we didn't send out the letters this year like we did in past. So more than a couple people didn't understand it, so they didn't see it. So we're going to send them, mail them back out.
I think the letters are definitely, I know the postage and things like that, but actually, you can put it on the webpage all you want. People, they're not going to look for it.
And yeah, you're correct. So some people do, but a lot of other people don't. And I think that was part of the problem this year.
Put it in the tax bill, right?
We have, yeah, so
The
people that get their bills with people that are escrow, we have to physically mail.
Yep.
Just a letter to them.
I think it's always again, it's kind of a sliding thing. And I think now we want to do a little better. And it was kind of similar to we got a lot of calls this year because October was just beautiful weather. Like my boat's still in, why can't we leave it in? There's not picnic tables still there. So I think we're going to look, next year being a little more flexible with that, perhaps change the date to the 1st of November instead of the 1st of October to have boats pulled out. I like to be out in the fall to fish and waterfowl hunt. So if I had a slip down there with my boat, and I'd probably want to have it in October, and we had some really, really nice weekends in October that you could have boated. So just looking at all these things, trying to be more flexible and be able to serve people the best we can. Any other questions for Shane on the core part of the DPW budget? Great. I think we'll jump over to sewer. I want to take a break or bathroom drink? No? Okay.
J1 is a summary sheet. And J2 is debt service. We want to just start with mine, or do you want to go through the debt service and all that stuff too? Okay, I guess we'll start with J5, the sewer admin. That is a third of the director, the supervisor, the administrative assistant, and the head facility maintenance worker. You can see they pulled out the 2 account clerks, as Mr. Jelly spoke of, and they'll budget them appropriately what they're actually working there.
What number are you at?
J5. On J6 is the admin budget. And on J7 is the sewer maintenance line. That's people from DPW that work on the transmission and distribution part of it. That's the salaries. You can see there's a change where there's some that have come across a little more being charged there than in the past. On J8 is the budget for sewer maintenance.
Cap Pro Construction.
I am not sure. The 330.
Yep, 129, 623.
I can follow up on that one.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I might have it here in my notes, but I'll look at it.
Any other questions?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
So right now, we're anticipating the wastewater treatment plant project to be completed.
I think the date is, completion date is June or July, substantial completion.
I've been down and toured it a few times. So.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it'll be, we still have a lot of work to do. I hope it's really looks sharp when it's all done, and for that kind of money, in terms of cleanup and painting. And I think a lot of the big ticket items certainly get done.
I think you took the paint out of the budget last year. I'm just kidding.
Is that, if that 129 is that's to start to fund those projects, Steve, in the capital plan?
I don't know, look, I'm not sure. I think so. I mean, it's a pretty deliberate amount of money, so it's not a typo, but we'll come up to it.
I don't know if the match is in there for the East David Street engineering, that grant we applied for.
Yeah, so while she's looking, I'm 90% certain what that is that's that's an amount of money that we're using. There's no place in here for quote capital reserve, so we're putting this towards capital construction, and the odd dollar amount is the amount of money to make the revenue and the expenses match. So in theory, let's say that was our surplus that was in here with the revenue that we're projecting to come in, and this is what we spoke about at the last meeting. I want to be able to, you good to confirm that now?
Yeah, that is correct.
So the amount of money we'd start our capital reserve fund with. Some part of our sewer budget, as we spoke a couple of council meetings ago, some part of our budget should be going towards a capital reserve for the various things. We're setting the stage now for a savings account, if you will, for 50 years from now. So there's some money set aside. So as we balanced out the budget this year, that amount of money was the amount we'll recommend will ultimately be in a capital reserve fund. Now, with that being said, we also have a pretty big year coming up. I don't anticipate we're going to be taking much or any money from the sewer fund to finish the wastewater treatment plant. However, we do have a project at the Main Street pump station we want to do that we're currently seeking $800,000 to match the $1 million grant that we got for that pump station. So again, there can always be, something here or there that's going to come up with that. And, we have an old infrastructure. So again, I think our plan will always be, I think that's how on an annual basis you'll see the money sit there. And if we don't use it, then what you'll hear from the comptroller at the end of the year is the money that isn't in there gets rolled into the capital reserve account to start to build us a fund.
We also, when the budget was prepared, did not have the news of the correctional facility closure. So all the revenue in both the water and sewer fund is based on full capacity of all commercial accounts. So there would be an adjustment that we should budget to the revenue that I can help calculate for that closure, should it happen. And you'll see that line item decrease accordingly if we adjust the revenue.
J9 is the water pollution control employees. That's the plan itself. This is a little different this year, so will be water. With everybody going to dual train, they can work at either plant. We're budgeting people half and half. Half to the water, half to the sewer.
How many employees do you have altogether between all three operations?
Including management.
Yes.
Well,
And if you can't answer that right now,
management, not you. How many people dedicate?
to the two plants, beginning of, we'll have 2 retirements at the end of this year, so we'll have 6 employees between both plants
For both plants.
with the oversight, with Dank overseeing the management of
Okay, so Dank is the management.
at the plant right now, yes.
You're a third of yours per department.
For salary wise,
Yes.
yeah, I'm a third, a third, a
Okay.
third.
And you got 6 employees at the 2 water and sewer.
3 at each plant.
So our plan going forward will be this will be our analysis year, 2022. It'll also be the year that we'll have everybody trained and in a position where we can look at making a decision once and for all, whether the entire workforce would be. At this point, I can say I don't see us considering third party commercial outsourcing. I don't see council entertaining that right away. And honestly, I don't see a lot of there's not contracts necessary to do that. So what I see us bringing you sometime in this 2022 year, middle to end, is the analysis whether Dank did the entire operation, their employees, or it's all city operations. So in our case, it would be you'll be hiring next year a dual water sewer plant chief, whatever we call it, director, operator. So the entire effort will be 7 is what it'll be. So one common head with 6 people, the idea being 3 for each, but everybody being common trained. So we're trying to keep that bench, keep the redundancy, keep the training, et cetera. So we've really determined, with a lot of assistance from Dank and other places in our experiences, what the most efficient organization looks like. We come down to 6 employees, but I don't know, after Shane and I Rubik's Cube the numbers back and forth 6 or 7 times, it's just a little too skinny for what I felt like was going to operate properly. So I think 7 is the number. And so this year, the way we'll accomplish that is 6 of our staff will still have the oversight from Dank. We don't have anybody currently in our workforce, and we'd have to hire for somebody to meet the sewer qualifications. Just got one of our employees certified for the 1A water operator. So
Yes.
I think 2022 will be the year we'll.
No, he just started training at the sewer plant. Because we used to be 2 separate.
I knew he was both on water.
Yeah, he just passed it.
He just got that one?
Yep.
I would really see, and we've talked to all the employees about this, so I'm telling you, it's not news to anybody. I really would see the director or the chief operator position over both. I would see that being an engineer. Just it's an engineer world. I think it's going to be difficult for somebody in that area that's not an engineer to have all the contacts they have. I think we'll have an assistant in each area, a senior person. I'm not exactly sure what we would call it, but I think the top person will need to be somebody with all the credentials and certifications. It's a lot of administration now. So that's what we'll be looking to bring council in 2022. The contract for Dank this year is a 1-year contract, $164,000. It's a bit of a decrease from what it was, but that's everything. And the other sheet that I'll send out to council, I got it from Dank a week ago, and I didn't have time to digest it, but I'll send it out to everybody. Is basically kind of what we get for that 164, and what you'll see in there, I had them clearly tab, is all the services that even when we don't have one of their folks on the ground, all the services that we'll continue to contract. We won't ever get away from outsourcing to someone like Dank some of the functions and the technical support that is brought to us. We were buying it from somebody else prior, and now we just buy it, the support services. So it's a real efficient contract for all that we're getting with it. But again, I think this will be the year for us to be able to work with the development authority to determine if them taking over entire operations is even an option, what the cost would look like, and then comparing it to what we know our costs would be with the same workforce, and then bringing it to council. I think it's important that we get to one or the other. Our hybrid model has been working, but I personally don't think we need to continue on a hybrid model. I think we either can do it all ourselves, or we can give it to somebody else to do on a contractual basis to do. We're in the situation we're in now just simply because we didn't have anybody in in the sewer area. Again, we're building our bench up in the water area. Expect us to keep doing that. And the sewer is just real difficult and a lot more time, contact time to get that licensure. So that's our plan for this year and what our longer term outlook is.
So we paid Dank 164 just for sewer.
No, everything. That'll be. I'll send you the summary sheet. I apologize for not saying that. I like I said, I got it a week or so ago, and I just hadn't had a chance. I specifically asked them to kind of give us the summary version of what do we get. We had two contracts. Those all expire at the end of the year. So now we'll have one. Again, I asked for a 1-year contract, and the one contract is again less. So, and the reason it's less, there's no magic or anything. There was some of the things they provided to us, internet connectivity and things like that. The capital costs were in the last contract. We paid all that, so they're gone. So now it's just the annual maintenance of the stuff. But what'll be important for you to see in there is all the services that we get that we have to buy them from somebody, whether we buy them from Dank or we buy them from another engineering firm. There's just stuff that we don't do ourselves. So that those costs are all there. So it's real efficient. They've in this area for certain, I feel like they've done the city a really good job. They have done, they stepped up and sent us somebody when we didn't have anybody. So it's been a good partnership. But I think they also recognize too that it's time for us to go one way or the other. Just have our entire workforce in-house or our entire workforce in one direction. Isn't that the hybrid model can't work? And I don't know. And again, from my perspective, having an engineer with the credentials we want, it may be a difficult recruit. I don't know. So, but either way we slice it, I think we have really arrived at what I think is most efficient organization status. We've done our best to find every expense we can cut out of this, so we've got the money to put towards the savings and keep the water rates as low as we can. But I mean, you figure both plants 24/7 operation with 7 people. That's a pretty skinny operation. So, and again, we've been lucky until just recently. We haven't had injuries, but we've had one out injured. And again, so if we're at 7 people and somebody gets injured, we're working. And it's a 24/7 commitment on some level to have somebody ready to go on that operation. So, I'll say the biggest transition is going to the dual operators. Again, I just think that's a contemporary sign of the times. That's where it's going, and we're working towards that. We're working towards that goals.
And the debt on J12 is half of the debt payments.
So on J12, those are you said half, Counselor?
Yeah, I was talking about the $43 million project. Is that a portion of it?
There is a portion of it in there. We've been working with fiscal advisors to determine exactly what that sewer payment will be in 2022. This was just an estimate, so that number may change. They sent over some data and we just need a follow-up conversation. Because the project's not final, it takes multiple parties to kind of estimate what that would be, and they sent some information, but like I said, there's still a pending question on that. So represented in that number of 506,000 and the interest of 253 is a portion of the sewer payment, correct?
There isn't any opportunity to, on the borrowing that we're taking out for the $43 million project to do some consolidation with the ones that are out there. I see the 2019, 2002. Any opportunity to consolidate, or that way too complicated and save some money?
Well, interestingly, some of these bonds that we have, one of them is a multi-purpose bond where the bulk of that, all but 16%, gets paid out of the water and sewer. In one more year, that's paid off. So there's some of them that are sort of terming out. There's the 2019 improvement bond, started at 1.179 million. We're halfway through.
Okay.
about a third of the way, sorry, through that payment. We could look at that, but I'm not sure there's an opportunity there.
8 years left, 7 years.
The interest rate is 3%. The final redemption is in 27, so we're about 4 years away from that. But the largest debt, the sewer debt, is a very low interest rate. So we're not exactly sure. It's a little bit tied to market, but
1.0 and one's 1.7 or something.
they've given me a number of 1.65, but that's not solid.
And then some of it's zero.
And some of it is zero, correct? It
About
will
20
all,
million, zero, I believe, right?
pardon me?
About 20 million is at 0%.
I believe that's correct, yes. And it will all depend on what the market looks like when that closes for final, when we do the final financing on that, the long-term financing.
Not on the 0%, but on the.
Correct,
other.
just on the portion that is not 0%.
J10 is the water pollution control budget lines.
I noticed on the professional training line, it seems like we budget the same amount every year and we don't spend anywhere close to that. Do you anticipate more training being done this year?
Yeah, COVID kind of hindered us last year. We have, I think, all 3 of the 4 that work there can test for their 3A, which is one step below the 4A that's required to work there. And then those same 3 employees can test for their 2A water license this year.
Okay.
So you'll see an increase in the water side too.
Perfect. Notice if we're allocating it, like to see our people actually
Yeah.
getting the programming to benefit themselves and the city. No, the consultant line, is that Dank?
Yes.
So that's of the 164, the 127 of that comes from sewer?
I believe that's it for the sewer. Next is the insurance fines, debt services.
Just a couple of things on sewer from my perspective, as I said earlier. Never, the wastewater treatment plant is one component of our sewer system. I would say really we have 3 components that, that make it up the plant. The lines that get us from point A to point B, whether it's homes to the street to the pump stations, et cetera, and then ultimately the pump stations. So we're biting off this big chunk of the wastewater treatment plant, but you'll hear from us routinely as we're putting these projects together and on the shelf. We're going to get through the pumps stations, get all those on the shelf, hopefully find grant money to be able to work through all those, and then continuing to look at what will be the most impactful areas that we can start looking at line work to make sure the lines are upgraded and replaced appropriately. And ultimately, the biggest chunk of that will be getting the stormwater off sewer lines. So it is probably our greatest challenge going forward next, once we get the mechanical infrastructure in place, is getting the water flow that is non-wastewater flow stopped. We're treating a lot of water at the sewer plant it's coming from Mother Nature. So I think there'll have to be some real emphasis, in the next 3 to 5 years from council to put effort towards this. We talk about the CSO outfalls and flows, and again, you can tie those every single one of them to a rain event. It's rarely that we've had kind of a sewer flow event, if you will. It's all tied to a significant fluctuation of water coming in from a rain event or a snow melt. So it really needs to be a priority. It does. We want to reduce the numbers of CSOs on our system, but really I want to emphasize the number of CSOs really are the CSOs are the the pop-off valve, if you will. The culprit is removing the water. So we are going to look, Councilor Reach has asked me on a couple of occasions, and Shane and I have talked about it. We've toured some of these. We've talked to the engineers and the development authority about it. And so we're going to be submitting a plan, but I just want to say again, removing the CSOs doesn't buy us anything if we haven't ensured that the flow is there. We do think we have a couple that may not be seeing any release, and perhaps we can remove them. Maybe buys us a little bit of credit that we got one of them down, but I emphasize again, the important thing is stopping the reason that we have all those CSOs, which is the amount of water flowing in the sewer system that we don't need to treat. I suspect the bulk of, if not all of every sump pump in the city is tied to tied into the sewer system. We've been doing that for a long time, and those are just all things that catch up with us after a while. Again, treating groundwater. So I think that's probably the biggest area that I try to stay focused. And I know we've had a lot of emphasis and attention on the wastewater treatment plant, but we have miles of sewer line out there. We didn't have any significant issues this year, but last year we had a pretty big issue in a section of pipe. And I think we're going to continue to see that just inflow of dirt and debris and things, after 50, 75, 100 years of the pipe being used. We see it, and those things are costly when we've got to dig up, a couple city blocks, a quarter mile of large pipe through the road, et cetera. So just I emphasize we're hitting the plant, but the infrastructure on the street is old, and the pump stations, that's our big push for the year, is getting those funded.
Yeah, it's beyond our financial ability to, tear up a street and separate sewer from water. Just, there isn't enough money to do that. Some communities, I mentioned it before, create swales or whatever to allow the runoff to go into a containment area, and it just filters down through. It doesn't get to a level where it goes into the sewer. I forget the terminology for that.
Yep.
But it would be interesting to do a couple of trials on that next year, this summer, like the mall parking lot, for example. If you could do that in the mall parking lot, that's a lot of water runoff from that huge paved area. Bottom of Hamilton Street. I mean, when I was a kid, that used to flood. You'd have 2 feet of water there. If there were swales and the catch basins were higher and it just naturally filtered into the ground, that's cheaper than digging up streets and separating sewers.
Absolutely.
The water budget. We'll start on I-5. That's the administration budget. Same as the other two, it's a third, and actually I think 34% in the water, not 33 for the director, supervisor, administrative assistant, and head facility maintenance worker.
On I-1, the first line and the third line seem to require some explanation. Not from you, I don't know. You see the numbers?
What page are you on, John?
I-1, 1,000,000 Yeah, and then the 897 to 1.1.
So in terms of 8310, our department administration decreasing from 1 million down to 705,000 in the current budget. That relates mostly to the elimination of a contingency line, which can be seen on page I6, line 8310.590. In the 2021 budget, we had 356,000 in contingency, and in the 2022 proposed budget, that's 0. So that is the explanation for that. Department 8340, if we take a look at that, what we have contributing to that increase is on line 8340.330 capital construction. In that number of 571,000, there was an increase. Some of that is to try to build a reserve for an anticipated water project significant in size. Also, there's the cost of some hydrants in that number as well. We also see an increase of $100,000 in the salary line, and I'm out of order on the page, I apologize. And that is mostly, not mostly, that is due to the different presentation of employees that we've seen in the past. So those two items, and then with that, those should be our major increases on that.
Okay, thanks.
On I-6, the administration budget.
What makes up the consultant line?
So some of that, Counselor, on the water administration is, well, it all is money going back to the general fund. $177,000. So inside this particular administration budget, we are transferring, let me just quickly add this in my head, probably about 350,000 plus of monies coming out of the water fund going over to the general fund to compensate for the administrative type positions such as the city manager, the comptroller, assessment, city clerk, city hall, central services, planning development, code, all of those kind of get tallied up. There is a methodology that the city has been using for a number of years. And so when you look at the 177, the 33,000, the 114,000, and there's another one, 79,000 elsewhere in account for 40, the equipment maintenance account. That's money that's going to repay the general fund for an allocation. The total allocation to the general fund out of water sewer in 2022 combined was 813,000. So just say half roughly between water sewer. They're put in these other lines, so it's not jumping off the page. So it's a great question. Using the same methodology that the city has employed in previous years, that allocation would have been $910,000. So the city manager reduced that dependence on the water sewer fund by approximately $100,000 in creating this budget.
How much is in the capital reserve for both departments, do you know?
We have put that into capital construction. Inside the water fund, that is approximately 530,000. And the sewer, we went over earlier, and I just don't recall the number, about 130.
But our fund balances are healthy.
In these two funds, yes.
And that's not reflected in like a capital reserve.
No.
You don't have it tucked away somewhere else.
I do not.
So we get about 2.5 million in revenues out of water. And we get about 2.8 million in revenues out of sewer. That roughly right?
Yes, it is. The proposed budget for water revenue is 2.6 million. Both the water fund and the sewer fund revenue has been based on a 5% increase in rates.
And what, the increase in rates that you propose, how much does that generate in water and sewer? Or how much is it projected to?
Well, it would be roughly $40,000 on the water fund. It'd be about roughly $40,000 in your metered rates and about $80,000 in your unmetered water sales. So it's $120,000 in total. And that's on the water side and
So
on
it's not a huge number in terms of the overall revenues.
that is noted,
Then it
yes.
comes out to 5%. In my head.
So just doing that same analysis on your sewer fund, your flat sewer rents, the rate increase on that 5%, approximately $90,000. And on the metered, it is 5% equates to about $45,000. That's just rough math.
And the difference, roughly twice flat versus metered, is a function of that there's more flat customers than metered customers. It's not a, because it would seem like your industrial users or your bigger users, like, you know, the institutions, which should generate a lot more money than households, you know?
No, a lot of households.
Have you looked into just increasing metered rates and not flat rates? Or is that unconstitutional?
I think you'd have a city that's would be pretty upset. Not so much the housing, but the people who are on the meters. They already complained because of the initial charge that, you know, let's say, for example, you got a little tiny liquor store on 4th Street. Okay.
Yeah, I guess
You're on a meter.
Yeah.
You're getting charged a baseline fee that's higher than your residential, and you got one employee in there that maybe flushes the toilet twice a day.
The minimums are very high.
And so I think that you would open up a can of worms we probably don't want to open. Just, you know.
I think what we owe you, Counselor Reach, what we owe you, excuse me, in the coming year is just that kind of we started to work through it in the last month, but there's a lot of history. So I'm just saying it, there's a lot of history. We've got a bunch of things to work through. I think that whenever you make a rate increase, you make a rate increase, period. I think what we owe you is kind of resetting common picture of where we are with the rates. We charge this much to this, this much to this, this much to this. Here's the reason, here's the logic. You know, you get charged more if you're a business, if you have a business, all those rate things we owe. But I think whenever we do a rate increase, we do a rate increase. You know, the percentage is the percentage. You know, we establish whatever
Well,
the different
that-
rates. I know what you're saying, but I don't.
I think that holds true if the formula for meters based on the size of their meter and everything and the flat rates is fair.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
but maybe that whole thing needs to be looked at to address what he's talking about.
I think it does, and not for another reason. There's just a lot of history, and I think it looks to me like it's, you know, we fix a problem that comes up, so we lay this on, we lay it on. I think now what we owe you is to look at the whole picture. Here's where we are. Here's where we've been. Here's the complaints we get. You know, and here's what a rate structure would look like. Not to be confused with raising, you know, that percentage of the rates. I think, again, I don't know about unconstitutional, but I agree that you probably would, you'd have an uproar if you raise the rates on some customers and not others. I think council,
But you can certainly,
council acknowledging
adjust the formulas.
I think council acknowledging what the rates are and then deciding what they want the rate structures to be. I think that's the pertinent work that needs to be done.
Never had a meeting before, John. You wouldn't want to say that.
But I think,
And let's keep it business friendly,
Oh, absolutely.
you know what I mean?
I-
It's a
he-
lot of
he
money,
makes the-
it's, you
he
know,
makes
how
a
many times can you
valid-
Stick to business, man.
He makes a valid point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that we're doing that. Certainly, you know, the point that he's making, you know, they should be looked at. But then you have bigger customers, the big ones that, I mean, are they paying a fair amount? I don't know.
So-
Those are the ones that put the demand on the plant when you have, you know,
I think if you really look, if you want to look at it all, you want to look at like the outside user fees. And that's problematic on development because the rate is so high for just even putting in the housing outside the city and tying in. You're going to pay a pretty penny. And I mean, why would you want to? You know, by the time, I know of developers that were coming in and they were just outside the city and they backed away.
It deters. It's been deterring
There's no
it for
question.
years.
I wouldn't,
We've had
why would I
arguments
want to
in
throw my money
council,
away?
one way or another, looking at both sides of that issue, and it's always been difficult to address. You know.
I think what you always see in these areas, both water and sewer, is just that. If there's access to water perhaps in the ground, then people will take it. But if there's not access to water in the ground, then they'll pay whatever you need to get water there. Most people, I think, would prefer to flush the toilet and know that it's going and gone. But if you thought you could have a septic in your backyard that didn't in theory cost you anything other than a pumping charge from time to time, you'd do it. Except if you couldn't do that, then you'd be happy to have the sewer. So I mean, I think on both these, particularly the water, we owe the layout of here's where the rates are. Here's kind of what the industry standard says between commercial customers, residential customers, let's say large customers, and then what does the buy-in have to be, you know, to get on the system, you know, or not. So I don't see this as an area that the city's been doing anything significantly wrong or even not being business friendly. I think you'll have to come up with a way to pay for these things when they need to be redone. So there's not a lot of extra money floating around in these things, and we have to pay and maintain these systems to state standards, and it's not cheap. So so we owe you the rate briefing within the first quarter about, you know, where we are and changes we would recommend. With that, I'll just follow into quickly my end comments on this. We're just going to be water meters, for instance. I don't let that continue to be a naughty word. We have to do it. It's not a matter of should we, it's a matter of when will we. Everybody in the city needs a water meter, whether we're using them, whether it's kind of like the assessment argument, you know, let's force the assessments down because we don't like the tax rate. We should not put a water meter in because we think you're going to pay more water. Water meters do lots of things, not the least of which is let us know when we have leaks in places. But it also lets us know that we are charging fair and adequately to places. The state will force us into it one way or the other. It will occur. I don't, every community in the North Country grapples with this. Everyone loses. So we will do it at some point. Again, what people's concern will be, does that mean you're going to charge me more? And that's our job, is to make sure that we illustrate what the cost is and we're charging what's necessary to keep the system moving. But we shouldn't be anti-meter for much longer. It'll be something you'll hear as we move forward in the coming year with the briefing to council on what we think are the immediate priorities 5 to 10 years, and then we think of the 20-year and out priorities on the upgrades to the water system. And one of those will be the discussion of water meters. But again, I will tell you, it won't be a lot of a choice. The state will direct us in that regard. So I know that's a topic, again, like assessments, that nobody wants to talk about, but like assessments, we have to talk about it, and we have to go in the direction that we have to go in with it. So I think it will clear up a lot of issues. But again, that'll be part of the discussion going forward on water system upgrades in the sometime in again first to second quarter of 2022.
The thing is getting the state to pay for it.
Right.
You know, because how many people, we had a discussion earlier tonight about galvanized steel coming into people's houses.
Oh yeah.
As soon as you put a wrench on it, you know, how much of it's going to break, and then who's going to be responsible? You want to talk about an uproar? There's a can of snakes, not a can of worms. You know, and
all valid points.
More people on the payroll.
all valid points, all things. I say to you without any reservation, we are going to do it, whether we want to or not. It really will become an irrelevant topic.
Go right now, I say no.
We will be doing it. And the way we'll do it is the state will, remember, we borrow the bulk of our interest-free and low interest money is from EFC, which is the corporation of the state of New York designed to lend us money. They will put the requirements in this area before we get $1 of that water upgrade money. So I've seen it happen. It's just happened in Tupper Lake. Everybody got a meter in Tupper Lake. They're not using them, but everybody got a meter.
That's been their threat on the table.
It will be. And we'll take it because we'll take their 10 or 15 or 20 million interest-free money. We'll do it. Yep.
The state's forcing it.
Yep.
As far as the user fees goes for outside, I was with that. And the other argument that everybody should put in their head is, and I remember Bill Nelson brought this up. Let's say if you eliminated that outside user fee, okay? What would Walmart do?
You're gonna lose the property tax
You're gonna
when
lose
they
the
build the
property
super
tax.
center in the town of Oswegatchie. That's why it's
And
this
not
way.
only that, maybe the strip mall next to it and everybody else.
That's right.
And so that's one of the reasons that we have it, is to try and keep businesses in the city from moving just outside the city. And then we're gonna lose the sales tax from it too, because of what we got going now. And so it's a predicament that we're in, that we have it there, but we can't get rid of it.
And creating a water and a sewer district doesn't address that.
Well, not really, because then they're going to,
Everybody's got to be the same rate.
that district is going to, no, not necessarily, but that district will have to cover its costs and all things associated with it. So I don't know that forming a separate district would cover it. I don't want to say I don't know that it wouldn't either, but I think it's, again, these are all the things that Shane and I, started talking about, and it's a pretty significant analysis that's needed. Where have we been, where are we, and where we want to go to be able to take care of the people we have on the system and continue to attract business. But again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but just enormous costs to maintain this stuff. It's not within our means to do. I mean, I think our best day is that we maintain the rates in such a way that we were able to maintain the funds to maintain the system. I mean, Councilor Reese is not wrong when he says we will never generate the revenue to be able to fund significant upgrades without the rates being so significant that it'll put people out of business. So it's a giant problem. And one of my arguments in my proposed budget, just again, I just think we have to keep looking at these consolidation efforts, because again, I think what we're seeing is the federal government or the state government's money being divided up amongst so many players. It's not going far enough for the people that need it. So.
Yeah, I can support the increase in the sewer rates, but I'm having a hard time with the increase in the water rates. And it's a lot to ask of people all in 1 year. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, and our increased recommendation to council was just based solely on, again, our cost to operate. We know we just know there's some things coming. Again, I'm not committing council to any water system upgrades, but there are things that will need to occur, and we have no reserve, and that's been my concern. We certainly, we can live without it from an operating perspective, as Angela indicated, by the amount of money that in theory would transfer over. But I do think, this year we will be having a discussion about the things that need to be done, and there's a number of things on the list that even if we do the immediate things, the things that are a threat kind of within now and the next 5 years, I think we're looking at a $5 to $10 million project, and we're not talking about any real upgrades or enhancements or anything like that. We're talking about the nuts and bolts to make the main system go. So that's where our recommendation came from on the rate increase.
Wasn't there in the water for capital projects like 530,000?
Right. Well, so again, what that would be, councilors, is sort of the funds we raise. That in theory is the money that's, call it surplus. It's the money that we raised that we would put, if we didn't use it this year for something, if something didn't come up that we needed that money, that would ultimately go into the capital reserve.
So that is the 5%, the 530.
Just about. I'm just concerned about,
It's 120,000.
I'm just concerned about where we are, knowing that there's work on the horizon that we don't have any money coffered for it.
Yeah, well, it's coming.
It is, and I'm obviously it's, again, I'm saying it's not money we need to make the system run, but in every budget in this water and sewer, there always should be money set aside to be able to do the capital.
If we were to do it today, I know we were estimating before some of the upgrades, about a third to a half of what this wastewater treatment is going to cost.
Yes, sir.
And so, and then with the prices of everything rising, we got kind of lucky that this contractor kept his bid.
Absolutely, we all.
So we've got to start putting away money.
Right.
You know,
I don't like the increase either, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just concerned. And the bigger concern that we see is, again, even when we get the grant money, there's always a tail, there's a match, there's a this, there's a that. So and again, I'd like to also say there's no money in that budget if something goes wrong on January 2nd. So again, we don't do anything in the water world that's all that cheap. So again, we certainly have some room in there, obviously, for council to consider. That's not a red line number. I just want council to, and I want to keep emphasizing what I said during my budget proposal. We really have to do our level best. I almost wasn't going to do water and sewer and DPW in the same night to kind of make the point of, we really have to begin to look at these as strictly as we can as three absolutely separate enterprises. And if we do business between our three separate enterprises, we follow a very strict set of guidelines in which to do that. And we're careful that, we're not robbing one enterprise to help another and then ultimately, hurting all the enterprises. So I think that's, again, the causes over the years certainly have been noble. And it's not like money went someplace it wasn't needed. It's just that this is where we get though when we're talking about these big money repairs when we haven't been setting the money aside. Part of your power bill, for instance, isn't just the money that gets the power, it's to pay for those enormous upgrades when they happen. I think, when you drive through Canyon, you see the significant work on the transmission line going through there. I mean, all those things, that means millions, billions of dollars to do those upgrades. Where does that money come from? It comes from.
I think it's good to have a savings account for this work coming up.
There's no benefit to creating a separate corporation that operates the water and sewer plants. That's a separate entity of no.
I don't see it, Counselor. If you did that, you then have to create three separate sets of rules. I think for us, it's just a matter of almost, almost a journey, if you will. So you put on your general hat, your water hat, or your sewer hat. That way your loyalty at that very moment is to the fund sitting in front of you, not, we've got a shortfall somewhere. How do we make this work? How do we make that work, or whatever? And again, I don't want to leave anybody. I don't think anything even remotely wrong has gone on. It's all been to balance the big ship that we call Ogdensburg. I just think, unfortunately, because the water and the sewer generate, let's say, some excess, from time to time, it's easy to see that. But again, as we're seeing now these repairs, and even if we're successful in getting the federal government to fund 80 or 90% of it, 90% on a $20 million project still leaves us with a pretty big bill of 10%. That's a lot of money for Ogdensburg to come up with. So I mean, I think even the wastewater treatment plant, if you'd have got 90% funding on that, you're still looking at a $4 million bill.
Yeah, but we almost added 5 million onto it. So I'm not feeling so bad on if it was 4 million.
No, well, I agree, but as I said earlier, remember though, we're gonna add it somewhere. So it's just big. It's big stuff. I think one of the things I heard Councilor Reese say earlier in the year, and I don't think I could agree more. This is one of those areas where somewhere between the state government and the federal government, this ought to be their responsibility, and we become the operator of it, because us trying to maintain it, it's an enormous amount.
Do you have a mason on your staff?
We have people that can do concrete work.
Yeah, just the front steps of City Hall. I don't know if that's a contract job or if you guys could handle that. Just the repairs, the masonry repairs, as well as the caulking and stuff like that.
It's something we can look at,
And maybe netting it out front there to keep the birds off and down at the Dubisky Center.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I think Jeremiah's looking into those.
Thanks.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, if council can endure just a few more minutes, the Remington, I just want to talk about that real quick. So Remington will, the last employee that is assigned to say what?
I guess Shane's done.
What's that?
I guess he's done.
Oh, good job. Oh, you hadn't done?
No, he was
Oh,
only
I'm
on
sorry.
IA.
Jeez, go ahead, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
So on
It got a little sidewalled.
Yeah, I guess.
I-7 is the water supply and power pumping power salaries. There again, you'll see an increase because we split the budget between water and sewer 50-50 with the employees that are remaining. On I-8 is the budget for supply power and pumping. On I-9 is the water transmission and distribution salaries. The employees out of DPW. On I-10 is the transmission and distribution budget. If there's any questions on that.
I noticed there's professional training in each line to the water fund. Now, when they receive specific training, is it charged off to that specific line or is it just training?
It's specific. So like when they go for water training, charge the water line, and then for sewage, charge the sewer line.
And so it's like water transmission distribution has a professional training. And then if you go back to
The pump and supply.
pumping supply, that's got a separate
Yeah, that's
professional training. So they're different tests that these individuals take.
Yes.
And they're charged to those individual line items.
The pump and supply is the plant, and transmission distribution is employees out of DPW.
Okay.
Capital construction.
That's that
There
we
it is.
just discussed
Yeah,
about.
plus I think that's part of it. There's still a grant left, I think, too. That makes up some of that money, right? It was this year out of that 420, part of it was that a grant that had been spent down yet.
So that's some of it, the hydrants are some of it, and then to balance the water fund, that's the rest of that.
Gotcha.
Not hydrants, but meters, right, Shane?
No hydrants.
Oh, is it hydrants?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
sorry.
They were replacing significant more hydrants this year.
Okay.
Because I think there's 13 that were missing a certain piece that were outdated, probably 50, 60 years old. Going up there.
Be interesting when the plant comes online to see what kind of savings we have with the methane and
The heating bills.
the heating bills and the efficiencies of the motors and things like that. That's probably not in this year's budget.
No, sir.
And on I-11 is the general insurances. And property loss, damages, then I-13 is debt service.
It's bad debt.
That's when there's a sewer bill write down or water fund in this case. So what you're seeing, I'm just kind of inferring that you may be wondering why it was $253,000 in 2019. And that was related to the receivable that had been on the books for the cheese plant.
Oh,
So we had that was $1 million adjustment in that year that we wrote that receivable off. And this is in both the water and sewer fund and the general fund. That's the impact of that
Right.
receivable hanging out there for a number of years. And that was the year they cleaned it up.
That's it.
I think you're done now.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Keep plugging. Doing good.
Thank you, sir.
is your kid going back in? Was he out?
I don't know. I haven't seen him. I don't know if he said he can try to practice.
He said what?
He's going to try to practice.
Very good.
Have a good night, guys.
You too. See you later.
We done, you want to talk?
Just real quick, so the Remington, just going through the normal lines that you'd see. The Remington, the last employee that is tied to the city payroll system will retire at the end of 2021. So the Remington will be completely on their own as a nonprofit entity and corporation, no longer municipal base. So it's a great accomplishment on their part. What I am telling entities like the Remington, the Chamber, et cetera, is this year, instead of them coming and pitching council for money out of the general fund, what I've asked everybody to do is put their request through for the ARPA money. I just think it takes a little pressure off us in the general fund. We'll have funds there to be able to do those. We've got all the information back now. We'll be getting those sorted out and to council for next Monday night recommendations to start sending some funding out. So that's what I'd like to tell the Remington. If council has some other desire, it's just please let me know. I just think this year it's a better way for us to fund the Remington, the Chamber, the library, any of the organizations that may come looking for some additional funding out of our budget.
Is that the same thing for the neighborhood center? I know last year we did the allocation.
No, ma'am. So that's a good one. And we've got a different line. Let's go ahead and hit that one. Can you point to? So as a, for instance, thanks, because that's really the only one that we left in here. They are now under a budget line called, it's, is it non-departmental community relations?
So it's all pages F-1 in your budget book. So the very first one is Department 7989 is the number on the left-hand side. That's other cultural and recreation activities. That was to support a major fishing tournament. The next would be Department 6410, and that was for the Pride and Beautification Commission of 2000. And the next is the miscellaneous home and community services, and that would be the money budgeted to go to CDP, Community Development Program.
It's a bunch more. There's about 6 pages marked F1, which will change in the final one. I lumped them all together, not knowing how this would shape out. They were all together. So if you go to the first of the F1s, economic development, you'll see that's the organizations that we've funded throughout the years.
So we're not proposing any money for the food pantry this year?
We are. I'm sorry. So on the 1, 2, and the last page, I think, Counselor, under, it's the last of the F1s, home and community support, miscellaneous home and community services.
Oh, under other contractual
Yeah,
expenses. Okay,
15,000.
I was on the wrong F1.
Yep.
So the 15 grand.
Yes, sir.
And was that 10 last year?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
What's the reasoning for the increases? They're just the generalized request that they are needing more to.
Yeah, so the request came in for 10,000 initially. I spoke to the executive director. They've obviously had some pretty significant increase with cost,
Right.
and their customer base has gone up quite a bit, and we see it. We're right here. So I think again.
No, I'm not against it. I was
no,
just wondering if it was
I'm just letting you-
like an added request that they
No,
wanted.
she was very generous. She came in, but she also talked to me through about the increase in expenses. And I think, for the mission that they do, feeding people, the extra 5,000 is my recommendation to council. So
I'm fine with that. I
Yep.
just was curious. as
No.
to-
I'm glad. So this is the area here we went through. So I budgeted money this year, 15,000 under the F1. It's another state line of celebrations. So I've budgeted money there for the Seaway Festival this year, whether it's helping cover firework expense or, whatever comes up. I feel like that's a pretty significant community event, and I want to have, be able to make sure we're supporting them. They have not specifically made a request for the coming year. We do have a request for this year to help support some of their costs that'll be in the ARPA amounts that you'll see. But I think, but this is an amount specific. I think we're budgeting here, whether it's to support them or to support our own operations in addition to what's like the police and fire budget. So again, the Remington is off our list from that. The library, I had a couple lengthy discussions with Michelle McLaughlin, the president. Angela has met a number of times with their staff, so they will not be making a request specific to council this year for funding for multiple reasons. I know Michelle and I have agreed it just isn't a good idea to do that now that they're getting significant money from a taxpayer draw. However, again, they can certainly apply with this ARPA project that we have going on, and council can take a look at that. I'm going to have Angela just detail there are some expenses that will continue for the library, and Angela's worked out a plan for them to be able to pay the city for those things. I'll let her talk about that.
So ongoing with the library, the major expenses that we have are just legacy expenses. So there is a bond that is attributable to them. So we have on page, they don't have a page number, but they're L. So it's under after K-2. Oh, I'm sorry, K-4. It does have a page number. I'm sorry. So there are no salaries. The library is maintaining their own payroll, their own staff in 2022. So that's a major change. At the bottom of K-4, you will see that they still have been allocated appropriations for principal and interest on indebtedness that's ongoing. And then turning the page to K-5, the other remaining expenses that flow through the city that we've asked the library to reimburse the city for are the state retirement cost as well as the health insurance for their retirees. So I'll be meeting with the director of the library very soon to make sure that that health insurance number is the most accurate number for them. So there may be a slight modification on that line after that meeting, but all in all, we're looking at total budgeted appropriations of $116,000, which we anticipate the library to fund that back to the city. The adjustment that the director has talked to me about in the health insurance line, I think may be a $20,000 reduction on that line, just so you're aware that I think that that's coming. And we will be meeting very soon to go over that.
How much is owed on that loan?
That particular one, just one second. I can probably tell you quickly. And I cannot tell you quickly because it's part of the general fund, but I believe.
It's part of a multi-purpose.
Yeah, it's a multi-purpose, so it's split up between multiple places. I think I would have to verify this, but there's somewhere between 5 and 6 years remaining to them. $7,000 a year, so they would owe approximately $42,000 back. Sounds kind of familiar, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I've reviewed it with them. They're aware of what the balance due is, but I just don't have it committed to memory.
And is that, I assume that's for a capital cost for the building?
It goes way back in time. I'm not exactly sure why they were given that part of the loan. Just library improvements is all it is stated at their section. So
Well, maybe we can pay for that. That doesn't seem like an awful lot of money, and it seems like it'd be reasonable for us to.
So I have the figure on that. At the end of 12/31/2020, the amount due per your audited financial statements on the library improvements was $65,000. So if they pay back $7,000 this year, they'll bring them down to $58,000. So at the end of 2020, well, they paid back 51. They'll be owed $51,000, so it's 2 years. So at the end of 2022, they'll owe $51,000 back, just going from your audited statement.
And we can certainly plan that in there. That's a fairly simple one that I don't think crosses any lines and can be a way that we're assisting the library. So that's council wish. We certainly can do that.
Yeah, you'd have my support.
On the ARPA money.
Yes, sir.
VFW, veterans talked to me, the commander there, and they had, because of an in-house mistake or something that happened, they didn't get their letter in here by the deadline, but they wanted to make sure they're on the list.
They are, and I wrote to them.
Okay, good.
And we've been in contact, and I have their request as well.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Excellent.
And I don't know if I wrote to them or one of our staff did, but we certainly got in touch with them
Good.
upon hearing from them.
Good, excellent, thank you.
And then one thing we're here, the Biddy basketball thing came out today. Can we do something similar like we did with the summer rec programs where we offer scholarship I know it's $15 per child. We offer, I just think you have some families, we're right around Christmas time. That is a hardship. Could we just make that easily accessible where it's not singling out families, just a form they could submit? I would just like, I know that went out today, but I know we kind of were late getting that rolling with the program, or even after so many children, it's free, or, you know what I mean? I just think that we need to do something. We're finally getting some programs up and running. There's not a lot offered, so, in the winter, so.
Will do.
Okay.
So council, the last order for us is, I'd like to schedule the next session if we could. The last group will be planning, engineering, code enforcement, assessor, and recreation. So is there another date this week that's
Thursday night.
Thursday? Could Thursday work?
Tomorrow night?
I can't tomorrow. My kid has a COVID vaccine. I mean, I can come for, like, she has COVID vaccine at 6:30, so I could come for a few minutes, but.
Yeah.
I want to do it tomorrow. I can't make it though.
Wednesday?
I'm working till 6:30. Anyone there?
Yeah,
I gotta work Wednesday night.
Thursday, did you say?
I could do Thursday.
I could do Thursday.
Yeah.
That'll pretty well wind it out, right?
Yes, sir. I don't, subject to anybody else that council wants to see or speak to. I'm going to, again, I've got a couple more of the non-departmental groups to talk to, but I think that would be the end of the departmental work session test.
Okay, so Thursday at 6?
Set us up well. That way the public would have heard all these. So for the public hearing on Monday night, you at least, people have heard the up-to-date information that you've heard, and then that way you can hear from them. So Thursday, 6 o'clock.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Steve?
That'll be works for me.
Just,
Yeah,
Yep.
Just a point of clarifications. How does it work on Monday? I mean, in the past, and it's always worked that if there was a consensus of the council to amend this or amend that, then that's what was done. But there's also the rule that if there's a motion or a resolution that you need 5 votes for. So which rule are we following?
Well, you're not bringing really anything from, my understanding has always been in previous years that, I could be speaking wrong, but when it's something as like a budget, you're not bringing a resolution to the floor, so it was a majority. You're not, I've always, it's never been like, it's not like you're bringing a resolution, the resolution's already there, so you're just, like making an amendment. It's the same thing, if you want to make a motion to amend, you only need a majority. It's the same concept.
Yeah, we're here for the budget, so the budget's what we're doing.
Right.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter if there's a resolution and Bill wants to, or one that's on the agenda and Bill wants to change a few words in it like we do all the
Yeah,
time.
you make an amendment or.
And that's a carries by 4, then it carries by 4. The only 5 ever comes up is if somebody throws a resolution out from the floor
That's not on the agenda.
on the agenda.
So I think you'll have your hearing on the 22nd. I would think between now and then, I mean, there's a couple ways I think you could go about this. One might be for people to compile the list of things that you want considered. We can summarize all that into a list. I'm sure everybody will have common thoughts, so we don't have to put it down 7 times, but we'll get a list there, and then council can look at that and then amend from there. That way you can adopt one change document if that's the way you see fit to do it. But again, you can debate that document. I'll put everything together and you can debate it and then make modifications to the document. But I would say so 2 things will happen at the end of that. We'll have that document, and then you'll adopt the budget with those modifications agreed upon in that.
What date is the budget have to be adopted by? The second week of December?
15th.
Second, yeah.
15th. Yeah.
Usually do it at the first meeting, but
Usually it's the first meeting in December, but
So our public hearing on the budget, yeah, will be next Monday.
and then our
Excuse me.
first meeting in December is,
Will be the first Monday, right? Because that's the month we do it back to back, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So in theory, we'd have it all ready by then. And the other thing we can do too, I suppose you could, we can, after the hearing on the 22nd, we can get it all summarized. And then if council want to call a special meeting just specifically to debate and or discuss the summary of changes sheet. However, I think there's a couple ways you can do it. That way we get here on the 22nd. You have a document that's, pretty well what you've all wanted to put together on. Might make it easier than just trying to debate it all on one particular night. Just kind of, there'll probably be lots of things you can get down to whatever the handful of items are you're down to. Okay. All right. See you on Thursday.
sounds good.